So I'm going to tell you next about the specific details of the situation in Spain. After a couple of drafts were leaked to the press at the beginning of the year, the Spanish government approved last June 29th a draft for a law that, in case of becoming an actual law, would have all three axes of gender ideology in one legal document. It has quite a long name, as you see. It's a draft bill for the real and effective equality of trans people and for the protection of the rights of LGBTI people. But everyone informally here refers to it as the trans law, even though it's not a law yet, as I said, and we hope it will never will. Those three axes are, as you can see on your screen, self-ID for every Spaniard over 14 years old. Specifically, what the proposed text says is that just by declaring so, it would be possible to get a rectification of the mention of sex on the registry, something that would have legal effect for all purposes. And that's because sex is the data recorded in Spain. Gender as such is not a legal category at all. The second important thing included in that draft is the prohibition by law of any non-affirmative approach to perceived identities. That is, the only thing you can do is enthusiastically affirm everyone that says they're trans, and this includes a specific banning on so-called conversion therapies, which, as we all know, could in fact criminalize therapists dealing with dysphoric patients, and also a consideration of non-affirming parents as dangerous for the well-being of their children, therefore being at risk of losing legal custody for that reason. As you see, there's an asterisk there. I will explain that later. The third axis in this law is the criminalization of dissent. We call it a gag law, which fines up to 150,000 euros for the new crime of LGBTI phobia, which is not explained anywhere in the draft. As if that weren't enough, what makes the situation even worse is that gender identity is mentioned in many drafts or laws that are currently being written or modified in Spain. For instance, as you can see, at the organic law on education, at the law for the comprehensive protection of children and adolescents from violence against them, commonly known as the Rose Law. As you see, there's the same asterisks because that consideration of when parents are non-affirming their children, that could be considered a risk for children. And that has been reframed as a form of violence, and parents could lose custody of their children for that. So that provision was included in this other law, not only at the trans law, and it's now enforced, so it could be enforced by trans activists at some point. We also have 44 regional laws on public health and education, and most of them include self-ID in those specific areas. There are other proposals that would include gender identity, is the draft bill for sports and the bill for the organic law on full guarantee of sexual freedom. That's about sexual violence against women. So in all this legal text, they include gender identity and the obligation of respecting that gender identity.